The city looked different from 3 inches off the ground. Whiskers twitching nervously, Shadow crouched beneath a parked car, his yellow eyes wide as unfamiliar feet shuffled past. The sleek black cat had never been this far from home before. One moment, he'd been chasing a butterfly through his front garden. The next, he'd found himself in a maze of towering buildings and endless noise. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pavement as Shadow carefully emerged from his hiding spot. His nose filled with strange scents, hot dogs from a nearby cart, exhaust fumes from passing buses, and something that might have been fish coming from a restaurant's back door. None of these smells led him home. A sudden blast of car horns sent Shadow bolting down an alley, his heart racing. The concrete was rough against his paw pads, so different from the soft carpet he was used to. As evening approached, the temperature began to drop, and the first drops of rain darkened the pavement. Shadow found shelter beneath a rusty fire escape, watching as the streets grew slick and shiny. Through the night, strange sounds kept him alert. Distant sirens, the clatter of trash cans, and the scampering of creatures he'd rather not meet. Shadow thought about his warm bed at home, about Sarah, his human, who always scratched behind his ears just right. Would he ever see her again? Morning brought new challenges. Shadow's stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since yesterday's breakfast. The city was waking up, filling with more noise, more people, more confusion. He ventured out, following his nose toward a dumpster where other cats were gathering. They weren't friendly, hissing and swatting when he approached. Shadow retreated, hungrier than before. As he wandered the unfamiliar streets, a kind-faced woman noticed him. She approached slowly, clicking her tongue, offering something that smelled like tuna. Shadow was tempted, but fear kept him at a distance. When she reached for him, he darted away, his tail bottled in alarm. She called after him, but Shadow didn't stop running until he was several blocks away. The second night was harder than the first. Thunder rolled across the sky, and rain poured through the grates of the loading dock where Shadow had taken shelter. His black fur was matted and damp, and his usual graceful movements had become slow and weary. He curled into a tight ball, trying to preserve what warmth he could. But sometimes the darkest moments bring unexpected light. As dawn broke on the third day, something familiar caught Shadow's attention. A scent on the breeze. Was that the bakery near his home? His whiskers quivered as he raised his head, testing the air. Yes, there it was again, the sweet smell of fresh bread that wafted past his window every morning. With renewed energy, Shadow followed the scent. Each step felt more certain than the last. The buildings started looking familiar. There was the blue house with the white fence, and the corner store where the owner always swept the sidewalk. His tired legs found new strength as he rounded the final corner. There it was, home. Shadow's pace quickened to a run as he approached the familiar front porch. Sarah was there, putting up another lost cat poster. When she turned and saw him, her cry of joy echoed down the street. Scooping him up in her arms, she held him close, her tears dampening his fur more than the rain had. Inside, Shadow devoured a bowl of his favorite food while Sarah called everyone who had helped search for him. He could hear the relief in her voice as she spread the good news. That evening, clean and dry at last, Shadow curled up in his favorite spot on the windowsill. He watched the city lights twinkle in the distance. Beautiful from here, but he was content to admire them from the safety of home. As Sarah stroked his fur that night, Shadow purred deeply, a sound that seemed to say everything words couldn't. He had faced the unknown, felt fear and loneliness, but found his way back to where he belonged. The city might be vast and mysterious, but home was where his heart knew to return.